Well, hi everybody. Today I'm with Franchise Frank. That's how he is known in the community that we immigration lawyers live in. Frank Caparino is my guest today, and we're going to talk about franchises. Why? Because franchise is a great way to get an E2 investor visa. You could get your E2 status within the US, or you could apply for an E2 visa at the consulate. But it is sometimes difficult to choose a job in which you invest in. Are you going to do your own occupation in the United States? Are you going to carry on your own company into the United States? Or do you want to do something else in the United States and start anew? If you want to start anew and if you want to invest on a franchise, this is the perfect opportunity for you because we're going to talk a lot about that today. So let me introduce you Frank first, and then we can get into the conversation. Welcome to our offices, Frank. How are you?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to always come to New York City. I really enjoy it, the food, the people, and all the excitement. And you got perfect weather right now, too.
Oh, yeah. For right now, yes. But usually where you are from, well, you're actually from New York and New Jersey area,
Right.
But you live in San Diego right now, right?
Correct.
So
36
that's where the weather is great, actually.
It is pretty nice, but we're spoiled, you know. Like, we still argue when it's 60 instead of being 70, right?
I know. That's how you get when you live over there.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about what you do, because we met through a networking group a couple of years ago,
Right.
and ever since you've become my favorite person to send my clients to. So can you tell us how this franchise works in the United States and what you do for the clients?
Well, first of all, my service is free to anybody who works with me. And I represent over 200 franchises in all kinds of areas, right? There's at least 30 categories of the 200 that I specialize in. And those kind of senior care, the fitness, the service, we can build restaurants. It's a lot of different areas. My background in franchising goes all the way back to 1996 when I had 8 Cold Stone Creameries, which was very popular in the United States, ice cream store, and I had 8 of them. So I'm a multi-unit franchisee. And now I've gone into, I had too many employees, I felt, in the summer. So now I start going into my salon suites where I build salons for hairdressers. So I only have a cleaning service and I have a repair person, and it's a lot easier. So that's kind of what I bring to clients, like, what do they need? What do they want? I spend like 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes with them analyzing what's going to fit their needs. Now in immigration, we got to fit their money needs. We got to fit their investment needs. We got to fit how many employees they need. So I've learned, through lawyers like yourself and other lawyers, and I've been doing this for over 12 years. I'm also a professor at San Diego State, where I teach a franchise management course in the fall. And that keeps me in touch with the young, and it also keeps me abreast of franchise law. I help people start a franchise, I help people be a franchisee. And so that's kind of how I've been into franchising a long time. My degree was electrical engineer and MBA in finance, so I'm very analytical. My wife was an RN, and she decided that's too stressful. So I said, what do you want to do? She said, buy me an ice cream store. That's how my franchising life started.
So basically, you were in the Navy, fixing computers, and then you lived in San Diego, and then you ended up owning your own franchise stores, which is amazing because then you know how a franchise works,
Right.
what's needed from a franchising company, what's a good franchise, and then you decided to offer these services as a broker to people who are looking for buying franchises.
Correct.
Is that the right way of putting it?
Correct.
Let's have our Turkish coffees. Okay. So that's what I always tell my clients, that if you want to buy a franchise and you want to have different options, one of the ways you could do this is work with a franchise broker.
Okay.
Because if you go to a broker, he or she can give you a lot of different options depending on the industry you want to invest, and also
Right.
depending on the location you want to live in.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So let's say a person came to you and they said that they are interested in the E2 visa. What does the process look like? what do you do?
Well, first I have to start everybody on the same process. I need to send them a confidential questionnaire. I need their email address. I send it to them, they fill it out, and I explain it to them because a foreign national, a person comes from Turkey, or I deal with people from Australia, or whatever. I have to explain to them that even if it's a different country, you're going to have real estate. I know you have real estate. I need that also because the franchisor looks at liquidity, how much you have up front, and I'm agnostic to what franchise I'm showing you, depending on how much money you have. So the liquidity and the net worth is something the franchisor looks at. Liquidity means you can buy the franchise fee, you can open the store, and you can get rolling with the business. Net worth tells me how long you have staying power. So, and your net worth includes your cars and your house, and we all know in Turkey your cars cost 3 times what they cost in the States. So that's one of your big assets. So I tell them about the finances. It takes 30 minutes to fill out a confidential questionnaire, but it's my starting point. I find out about their background, what they do in business, and maybe even what they do in education. And then when I get that, I'll tell them I'll set up an hour and a half Zoom for consultation. And that's when I'm going to start asking a series of questions to drill down more on what they would like, what state they want to go into, what territory they want to have in that state. And that's how I start the process.
So you said this before, but I just want to clear this out because I just want to clarify this because it's important. This process doesn't cost anything to the client, does it?
No, I get paid by the franchise companies.
Okay, I think this is very important because, and this is one of the reasons I was able to send people your way, because I know that until they make a decision, they're not going to pay anything.
Right.
Basically, you're going to be dealing with them and recommending them the right franchise. So I thought that was a great service because most of the people, when they want to come here, they don't know what they're going to do. That doesn't mean that you should discover everything with Frank because he has so much time that he cannot spend hours and hours and hours on this maybe. But at least if you have an idea about what you want to do and where you want to do it, this might be a good position to start.
Correct.
On average, how long does it take you to talk with the client and for them to decide on one franchise? Do you have any statistics on that?
Well, I talked about the first two. I want the confidential questionnaire, so it depends on how quickly they get that back. And then we set up immediately within days or two the consultation that takes an hour and a half on Zoom. And then about a half a week later, about 3-4 days, because I got checked territories, I'm presenting 3 franchise companies to them from what I've ascertained on us speaking together and from what happened during, doing a territory check, right? So then once I present that, the average should take 6 weeks from when we first met to when they sign the documents to buy a franchise, if they move along with the process. Because once I'm done with them, they got to spend at least 3-4 weeks with the franchise companies. They got 4 or 5 meetings with them.
That's pretty quick, actually.
Right.
If you know what you want and you can get this process quickly, then that's pretty fast.
Right.
Because if you want to set up something on your own, it takes significantly longer time. And the advantage of having a franchise company, and this is something I always tell my clients, is that there is at least one other person who wants you to be successful, and that is a franchise owner.
Right.
So I guess the question here is, why would the franchise owner want a foreign investor in their franchise?
We talked about that also, you and I, about maybe sometimes a franchise, when they're brand new, might not want that because those original franchisors are their meat that they want to grow it on. But after they get, okay, here's what I tell other people in my business that say, isn't it more complicated working with people who want E2s and visas or L1s? And I say, no, because of the fact you have their undivided attention. You're their gatekeeper to get a business before they meet with REMZ so they can start the paperwork for a visa. So it's very important to them. Now, I also tell them that I represent 200 franchises, but I have 30 that are very E2 friendly because they've done it before, they're very established, and they know what the process is. So that's kind of what I bring to it also. Say, let's not play around with a franchisor that doesn't want to do E2. And I also tell them, don't get hurt. It's not that they don't want to work with people from another country. Some just it's their business. When I say I have 200 franchise, that's 200 companies that they have their own rules. And some say, well, I want to just do domestic people. And other people say, I like E2s because they're dedicated and I know they're going to work hard because they want to be here. They want that business to work. And that's what's good about it.
That's the good thing actually, because you want your E2 business to run properly and
Right.
smoothly in order to maintain your status on the E2. So as an investor, well actually as a franchise owner, it makes sense I think to be able to get an E2 investor because you know that they're going to take care of this business that like their child,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about the investment money here. The franchises that you represent, you said about 200 and then about 30, 40 of them are E2 friendly. That's also very important, by the way. Not all franchises are E2 friendly.
Right.
So you lose a lot of time dealing with the franchises. If you know that they're already E2 friendly, that they have done it before, then you gain a lot of time.
Sure.
So what is the price range in franchises? The lowest.
My lowest is like 50,000 up to $1 million. I don't do the hotels and stuff, which are like 20 million, right? And so anywhere from 50,000 to $1 million. Right? So
And what kind of companies are we talking about? Are they in all industries, just a very specific few industries?
no, the industries are, when I say service, that's anything that you repair on a building or a house, from painting to concrete to fencing, whatever. Then we talk about inline in malls and so forth. We talk about, restaurants. And I carry only like 4 or 5 restaurants out of the 200. And a lot of people think franchising is only restaurants. There's so much more. We got consulting franchises. Sometimes if somebody has really great English skills and they already have a great background, they used to be an international consultant, that fits with them. They can become a consultant, but that wouldn't work with E2 because you need employees, right?
Yeah.
So, but we have senior care where people there's a lot more employees where you take care of seniors in their house, right? Your employees are going into taking care of seniors, right? And then of course there's the restaurants, like I said, but the reason sometimes that's difficult, they gotta spend more money, it takes more time to get the property and get the landlord and the lease, right? So that's why I wanna work with them, what they need, what fits your requirements, how much you wanna spend, is it 200,000 to get the E2 visa, whatever you need is what I'm gonna show them, right,
That's the other thing. When you look for a franchise investment, you are always in constant contact with your immigration attorney as well. Because it might be a great franchise opportunity and it might be very profitable, but if it doesn't have the requirements of an E2 visa, then you will end up with a great franchise but maybe no E2.
Right,
So you want to be able to combine the two
Right.
and make a great investment, and I think that's where Frank Services become very important because he knows what E2 takes.
Right.
And we are also in constant communication, but it is client's responsibility to check with the immigration attorney to make sure this franchise can fly in the immigration world and can get an E2 visa.
Is it true sometimes that depending on the consulate or the office you go to, they look for different amounts of money?
That's correct.
Okay.
For example, if you are doing this E2 application within the US, your your $50,000 franchise would probably fly. We have to take a look at other things also, whether it satisfies all the E2 requirements. But basically, as far as the money investment is concerned, it looks like it's okay. But if you go with the same amount of investment to a US consulate, for example,
Right.
you would have a difficulty. Then there is also one amount of investment is the right amount of investment. It depends really on the consulate, on where you're going. They take a look at different things. So the knowledge about the consulate in E2 and E1 applications is crucial,
Okay.
actually. Okay, let me ask you about the geographical location. United States is a big country. There's
Right.
50 states. So does your service cover all of the states? For example,
Yes.
if someone wants to invest in Miami or in Los Angeles or in Albuquerque, whatever, can you help them out?
Yes, anywhere, any state. I just want to make a stipulation, some states are easier than others, right? Some have more regulations, so they're slower to open a business, where others, like Texas and Florida, you can fly really through. And I don't want to say those two states, there's a lot, but there's 14 out of 50 states that they're regulated, and they're a little slower sometimes. So I try to advise them on that too. If they're just throwing a dart at the United States where they want to live, I kind of like to say maybe Texas, maybe Florida, you know? Even right here where you are in New York is more difficult than New Jersey. New Jersey's easy, right?
So it depends on the state then.
Right.
But also know that registering the franchise or opening up a business, but also know that opening up a business is just part of the process. The most important thing is, where do you want to be in the United States? Right. If you want to live in a certain state, even if the business opening is a little bit more difficult, you're going to end up living in where you want, and that's actually what you want, because you want to be able to maintain this business throughout your E2 visa status. Otherwise, you're going to lose your status. If you lose your status, then you cannot live in the United States. Right. So I always tell them, tell my clients, make your priorities. If living in a state is your priority, then look for businesses over there. Even if that business is a little harder to open and maintain, maybe that's your best bet because you want to live there. Sure. But consider this.
Right.
Okay.
I also sometimes help them and tell them what the housing average prices cost in a California vice Florida, right? You know,
that's also important.
Yeah.
And also, you have to know that, you know, the data in Los Angeles, for example, may not be the same with the data in San Francisco.
Right.
So right. Is it an urban area? Is it a rural area?
Sure.
Is it populated, not populated? There's a lot of variables here.
Right.
This is something you can come and discover on your own. Okay, here's maybe something that our viewers want to know. Do they have to be in the U.S. for this research, or can you do it for them? Do they have to be here at some point to sign these things?
They fill out the confidential questionnaire, and we do an hour and a half on Zoom, and then about a half a week later, I present 3 franchise companies. Then I send them to if they agree with those 3, and I usually have like 5 ready to go, and say, if you don't like these 3, I got a couple more. And sometimes they say, well, show me 10 more. So I'm not going to do that because it's analysis paralysis. Because I want you to focus. Here's what my job is. I'm going to be a coach during this 6 to 8 weeks process when you're finding a franchise. And I want to meet with you every week at least 10 minutes, right? To say, how did it go when I sent you to the franchise company? And the franchise company's got regulations. Franchise has a lot of regulations. They give you a document that has what their sales are. So you can actually look at their average across the country and find out what their annual sales are. So that helps you make a decision. So, but the thing is, they can only tell you what they put in print in that document that you're going to look at. But I want you to validate with the franchisees. Validation means this is the person that wrote the check already. Mm-hmm. These are the people that are in that franchise. They can tell you anything. And I even tell you the questions to ask. I give you 8 questions to ask. Like you start out with, how was the training? How was the opening support? And maybe the 8th question is, did you make the money you thought you were going to make? Because you got a rapport between question 1 and 8. And those franchisees can tell you anything. So that's why I want to only present 3 to you, because I want you to have the time to call or email, since you're international, and get answers to these questions from franchisees. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really important. And then we meet every week to see if you have questions. Now, and we can do this all by Zoom. And at the very end, about the 4th meeting with the franchisor, if they like you, they're going to invite you to the Discovery Day, which means some of you might even be coming to the States and you put it off a month or so and say, I'm going to be there in a month. Or you can do it by Zoom. They know if they accept E2s, they know they accept also Zoom Discovery Days. That's when you meet the executives, you see the offices, you touch and feel who they are, and you're ready to make a decision.
And at that point, can the franchisor still can say no?
No, if he invites you to Discovery Day, he's saying to you that I like you, or else I wouldn't even invite you, because you already went through 3 or 4 meetings, okay, right? And then he's going to ask you, if I call you next week, are you ready to make a decision?
Oh, okay, I see. So, one question that comes to mind in all of these dealings is, how are you going to, how does the client protect his or her own interests during this application? Because you are asking for documents, the franchise company provides them, you have to evaluate them and get back to them, etc. So the first question I have is, do the franchise companies give the correct information? Do they give correct tax returns, W-2s, quarterly tax returns, etc.?
Well, the way you start a franchise, it's a complicated thing, and I even teach that in my class as a professor. You have to go to another type of lawyer called a franchise lawyer, right? He specializes in franchises, and part of when you present that, the state has to bless you, and the federal document, depending on the state you're in, has to bless you, and they want 3 years of audited finances. So your franchise lawyer and your CPA that's doing your accounting for the franchise company has to feed all those things, or you would never be a franchise.
Okay.
So that a lot of that's done on the front end.
Okay. So if I want to buy a franchise, and if this franchise company is sending me a package, introductory package, saying what they're selling, how many they are selling, what their income is it usually a trustworthy document, or is it always a trustworthy document, or should an investor check it, and if yes, how?
No, I think it's pretty trustworthy, but he's going to be able to check it through. I said when you got to validate and call up existing franchisees, right?
Yeah.
And also in that franchise document that they get delivered, called the FDD, Franchise Disclosure Document, they have, if there's any litigation history in there, if there's any bankruptcy history. So that's important stuff that they can see in there that's disclosed, to see that all the finances and everything's correct. And then when you talk to the franchisees, they're going to tell you if they made money they thought they were going to make, if the company's still growing. So you got a lot of checks and balances, but you got to do a little homework too.
Right.
But if we have our weekly meetings, they could ask me those questions, and then I can help them with the answers on how to find the right answers.
How does the franchise get involved with the business after they have issued the franchisee license? Do they provide some kind of support, or is it kind of you're on your own, you just pay us our fees?
Right.
How does it work?
Well, that's one of those 8 questions. I said there's 8 questions. One, what was your ongoing support? What was your opening support? Did they help you get the business rolling? Did they come around and check on you? And that's also disclosed when they have these 4 meetings with the franchisor. And I say franchisor for people who are learning how to talk about it. That's the company, and you're the franchisee if you buy into the company. I asked them to do is on that introductory call. Take that introductory call, have your list of questions, and start. And you're going to have 4 meetings with them, and then one is going to be the introductory call, one's going to be unit economics, one's going to be about validation, which means talk to franchisees, and one of them is going to be about explaining the technical document called the Franchise Disclosure Document. You're going to get a lot of education through this, and you have a lot of chances to ask the questions. And they want you to become a franchisee, just like I would like you to be a franchisee. So there's a lot of people to help you through this process. I
think that's one of the good things. Everybody is in the same boat here. It looks like you are one part and the franchise owner is the other part, but in fact, everybody wants to be successful. You want to be successful because you want your E2B to be approved, and the franchise owner would like you to be successful because once they see that this is successful, they can move to another one.
Right.
So I want to
mention one other thing on this too. Sometimes though they go a little beyond. When they say to me, I'm in Turkey right now and I want to stay here, or I'm in any other country I deal with, and I've dealt E2s on 16 countries now, they say, I want to stay here and I want the business to completely run itself. That's not realistic, and I'm not gonna say that. You got to be here once in a while, right?
Running is yes. How about establishing it? Can they establish the company and start running it before coming to the U.S.?
I actually have a family in Tel Aviv that actually bought a total absentee franchise, which actually they walk dogs, they sit dogs. When people travel, they bring them to veterinarians, and that thing is completely run by the franchise company, and they invested the money. The franchise company hires the people, and hires all the employees, but they make the foreign national sign off on, well, you give me 2 resumes, I like these 2 people. So there's that involvement, but they can run it internationally.
Okay. So, do you think that the franchisee who's applying to get the franchise need a lawyer for this process?
Well, there are franchise lawyers that can look at the franchise disclosure document, and that's going to be an extra fee. I don't ever quote a lawyer's fee, but there, and I can suggest them. I have a cadre of them, so depending on the state they're in. But franchising is a federal document, so any franchise lawyer can do any state in the country, right?
Okay.
To review those documents, and they do it online. You send them the document, and he tells you, here's the traps. And I always tell them, you got to have a franchise lawyer, not a transactional lawyer, because they won't understand franchise documents, because it's legally leaning towards the franchisor to keep quality, right? So a non-trained franchise lawyer will say, boy, this is a tough contract, right? But they do that for quality.
Okay, so the franchise contracts lean toward the franchisor.
Right.
Okay. Because we have an attorney who does transactional work, and she was able to review a lot of these documents, and she had a lot of changes, of course, and we said, maybe it's because how they want to do it. So if you change too many things, maybe they're not gonna accept it. That doesn't mean don't go hire a lawyer. Still go hire a lawyer and find out what the franchise is, but know before you sign it.
He specializes in franchising because the reason it doesn't work, or franchisors can't change royalties, can't change some of the important elements, is because then they would have to disclose every franchisee that paid the price before and re-disclose them with a new document. And they were not going to do that.
Okay. So the franchises that you basically represent, normally how many employees do they have at the level where we could say $150,000 to $250,000, because that's most ballpark figures are. That's where most of the investments are. Or let's say we can do 100,000 to 300,000.
Right.
How many employees do they have usually?
Well, if you had retail, which is food and so forth, like when I had an ice cream store, it actually, I can tell you I had 10 employees per store, but really most of them are part-time working, 10 hours a week, right? But
and back maybe students.
Right. And you only have one full-time manager, right, if you have multiple locations. But if you have some people that are going to be in there and running it and working 30, 40 hours a week, maybe they need 2 more employees, right? So, and if you got a franchise where you're repairing things and so forth, maybe you need a couple people who work a 40-hour week, because you're going to do the admin and the marketing through the franchisor's help, and then they're going to be doing the actual labor and the construction work, right?
Exactly. Okay, then I think this is my last question. How can people reach out to you?
Well, you can go to my website, franchisefrank.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn, and you can also address me and jump on my calendar link that's on there. And you can go through Ramsey here. He knows how to find me. So.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we've been working quite a lot, and about to finish the first few projects. One of them is a $400,000 investment. The other one is, I think, 150.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes. But I'm very optimistic about it, because if Frank didn't exist, then I wouldn't know where to send these clients to.
I like that.
So I think he's covering up a huge, what's the word, loophole? Right. He's covering a huge loophole in the whole immigration process, where people don't know where they're going to invest, but Frank reaches out and helps them in deciding where to invest. I think that's a great service. Well, thank you so much for coming to our office, our YouTube channel.
appreciate it.
This is a first in our channel also. We did this in English and we're probably gonna translate it to Turkish so that more Turkish people can be aware of this.
Right,
But
okay.
if you know English, Frank can speak English. Don't forget that.
That's my one language, but it's got Jersey accent.
Yeah, but you actually worked in many different countries, right?
Right, yes. I
You
lived
were
in-
saying 40?
Yeah, no, I lived in 3 years in Naples, Italy, and 4 years in Yokosuka, Japan, working on Navy ships. I was never in the Navy, if they got that wrong. I was an engineer on contract to the Navy.
Okay.
Rode 300 Navy ships in my life, rode submarines, landed on aircraft carriers when I was a young guy, and sometimes I dream I don't believe I did that, but it was a lot of fun, and you always had to be the expert, so it was an ego-intensive job. So
Mhm.
now I just sell franchises. They're not that ego-intensive, but I like helping people, and I like people from other countries because I've been to 45 countries doing that.
Well, it's good. That's how we got to meet you.
Right.
And I'm glad we did because we also like helping people and knowing that once they invest, they have to invest in a good thing, a profitable thing, so that they can carry on their activities in the United States,
Right.
make money, and maintain their E2 status at the same time. So
Great.
thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
So today I wanted to talk to you about the E2 visa application and specifically franchise investments. I think we had the right person for it because he's industry agnostic and he's franchise agnostic, meaning you can have whatever franchise idea you have, you may want to live wherever you may want to live. He's not bound by any one franchise, but he will bring the best franchise options for you. And the good thing is there's no cost to you. So I thought that's why this was very important. Just for the disclaimer, we have no business relationship with Frank in the sense that we don't own anything together. We don't own anything together. We don't give each other any commissions, etc. It's just that I want to introduce people who do their jobs really good because I think that's a service to the community. I think Frank is occupying a very important role in the E2 space because he's basically taking the clients. Because Frank takes these people and introduces to a business that they enjoy doing and they can maintain their E2 status. I think that's a great service. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like this. So Frank is a franchise broker and he also is a franchisee for the last 28 years where he actually maintains a franchise business. So I think he's great at what he does and he can understand your needs. And hopefully this video could be helpful to you. So if you have any questions, you can write them down in the comment section so that I can respond to them. Please do not forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video so that more people who are interested in this can see this video. Thank you so much. I hope to see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.